Hi, my name is Rabbi Marcus from Congregation Israel of Springfield, New Jersey. Today I'd like to speak to you about this week's Torah portion, Parashat Shemot. We know that in Parashat Shemot we begin perhaps one of the most famous narratives in the entirety of all of Tanakh, the entirety of the Bible. It's the story of the enslavement and the liberation of the Jewish people from the Egyptian exile. We know that in Parashat Shemot begins, of course, also the drama of the life of one of the main figures of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu. This is literally the stuff not only of great stories in the Tanakh, but of Hollywood blockbusters, whether it's the Ten Commandments or the more recent Prince of Egypt. And in fact, the story of the Exodus, the story of Parashat Shemot, and the next few weeks' Parashiyos that we're going to be learning, really seems to be just a great story from the past. However, the Jewish mystical tradition teaches us that the lessons of Parashat Shemot are really very, very much contemporary and something that we can live with day in and day out. We know that the Zohar, one of the most fundamental texts of Jewish mysticism, teaches us that when we read a Torah portion, there are certain spiritual energies that portion gives over to that week. Therefore, when we read the Torah portions of Shemos, Va'era, Bo, B'Shalach, Yisro, and Mishpatim, the next 6 weeks, it actually forms a continuity known as Shovavim. It's in the mystical tradition for centuries now that during these 6 weeks, there's an incredible spiritual energy, similar to the spiritual energy that the Jewish people had literally while they were enslaved in Egypt, through the redemption, through the splitting of the sea, and the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, and their great declaration of Na'aseh v'nishma, that we will do and we will listen. So what does that mean? What is this energy for each and every one of us? Rabbi Gedal Yeshua of blessed memory, one of the greatest Torah scholars of the 20th century, one of the first to actually be born on U.S. soil, teaches in his great work, the Or Gedalyahu, that these weeks of Shemos through Mishpatim, these weeks known as Shovavim, are a time for each and every one of us to take a serious spiritual accounting, to ask ourselves, what are the things that we are enslaved to in today's society, and in what way can we set ourselves free? For Rabbi Shur says the themes of enslavement, of subjugation, are eternal themes, they're contemporary themes. And that each year when we come to these Torah portions, we're able to set ourselves free from whatever is enslaving us at this time. What's truly fascinating, Rabbi Shur points out, is that the sages teach us in a medrash that no slave ever left Egypt until the Jewish people left under the leadership of Moses. What does that mean? Does that mean that Egypt had sharpshooters and towers? Does it mean they had miles and miles of barbed wire, perhaps a very large wall? Rabbi Shur explains that the Midrashic teaching shares a fundamental human insight, that really the slaves in Egypt were all brainwashed by Pharaoh. Pharaoh had a master propaganda machine going, convincing all of the slaves that you have it so great in Egypt, you don't want to go out. And that the slavery was not only physical, but it was really a mental, psychological enslavement. The Jewish people had to learn that they were even being enslaved by the Egyptians. Once they understood that, then they could see how bad their situation truly was, and only then could hope spring forward. I hope that as we read this parsha, the parsha of Shemos, and the next 5 weeks from Va'era, Bo, B'Shalach, Yisro, culminating with Mishpatim, we can tap into this energy. We can take that spiritual counting of asking ourselves, what are we enslaved to today? And in what way can the message of the Exodus resonate with each and every one of us so we can set ourselves free? Bayamim hahem, Bazman hazeh. These aren't only stories of the past, but rather this is really the story of the Jewish people that is being lived in each and every generation. Have a great Shabbos.